Hello and welcome to an exciting new episode of Talking About Stoicism, where we were going over the moral letters by Lucius Annaeus Seneca. Sorry, I know I should point that up and not point it at me. Okay, we have landed in letter 77, and it's a long letter. So, although this may not be the most crucial teaching from this letter, this is kind of what I wanted to focus on. From Seneca to Lucilius, greetings. Today, all of a sudden, the ships of Alexandria came into view. These are the ones that are customarily sent on ahead to announce the arrival of a fleet. People call them mail boats, and the sight of them is welcome in Campania. The whole populace stands on the docks of Puteoli, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, and can pick out the Alexandrians amid the grey traffic of shipping just by the design of their sails. For these boats alone are allowed to carry their topsails. All vessels have topsails when out at sea, for nothing aids their progress as well as the upper portion of the canvas, that is, what gives them their greatest speed. For this reason the yard is lowered when the wind becomes gusty and stronger than necessary, for the breeze lower down is not as forceful. Once they come in past Capri, and the promontory from which Athena from the stormy heights stands guard supreme, the other boats are told to content themselves with their mainsails. Thus the topsail is the distinguishing mark of the Alexandrians. It's not a lesson on sailing, so that was not really what I cared about. Here things get interesting to me. Amid this rush of people hurrying toward the shore, I took considerable pleasure in my own idleness. That is, in the fact that I did not hurry down to pick up letters from friends and family or to find out how my business was doing overseas and what profit it would yield. It has been a long time since I either lost or gained anything. This would have been the right attitude for me to take even if I were not old. It is even more right now. No matter how little I have, my travel money is still more than the road I have left to travel, especially as there is no need to finish this journey we are on. A journey is unfinished if you stop in the middle or anywhere short of your destination, but life is never cut short as long as one lives honorably. It is complete no matter where you end it, as long as you end it in a good way. Now, there are many things to talk about here, about living honorably and about the not really caring about whether you have lost or gained anything. We bring back to our recollection, of course, that Seneca was pretty much a millionaire by today's standards, so I don't know how realistic it is to say, oh, I don't care about how much money I lost. I mean, yeah, you had a lot of money though. Anyway, what I found, what I was reminded of, was something I read a long time ago in a interesting little book, which is not at all Stoic, but which I think is interesting regardless. The Hagakure. It's a little book, isn't it? Yeah, it's a little book. Okay. This is a manual for samurai. A little complicated. It wasn't actually written by someone. It was written by someone who had conversations with the person who is credited as being the author. Anyway, these are all short little snippets, and they're very interesting to read. And some are a little enigmatic, and some I think are still pretty good lessons on life that we can apply today. And Yamamoto Tsunetomo, the author of this book, said the following. There is something to be learned from a rainstorm. When meeting with a sudden shower, you try not to get wet and run quickly along the road, but doing such things as passing under the eaves of houses, you still get wet. When you are resolved from the beginning, you will not be perplexed, though you still get the same soaking. This understanding extends to everything. Bushido, the way of the warrior, and Stoicism are fundamentally different things. Bushido really was meant as a code of honor for samurai and was very, very harsh. It was a very harsh philosophy of life, where honor is more important than anything else. But then when you think about it, Stoicism really says virtue, which is kind of a little bit like honor, living the right way, is more important than anything else. So I always think it's interesting. There certainly are some parallels between the way of the warrior in Japan and Stoicism. Now, I'm not going to draw many parallels because I don't know how interesting that is, although I could give it thought and record a video on that if people find that interesting. But what I found most interesting is the way Seneca describes his idleness. I thought it was very eloquent because you can picture this. Amid the rush of people hurrying toward the shore, trying to get their letters, I took considerable pleasure in my own idleness. That is, in the fact that I did not hurry down to pick up letters from friends and family or to find out how my business was doing overseas and what profit it would yield. And this, again, to me, this kind of ties in to that one specific quote from the Hagakure. When we do things, we can do those things in multiple ways, but one way to approach things, activities in life, is to be resolved from the beginning, as Yamamoto Tsunetomo said several times throughout the Hagakure. One of his main points is your mind needs to be made up. You need to be resolved in what you do, and then whatever comes, even if that is an unpleasant thing, you are prepared for it because you are resolved to handle that thing as well as you can, which I think in many ways is a very stoic kind of thought. You think about what can happen, and then you are prepared for when it actually happens. Premeditatio malorum, think of the worst thing that can happen, and then if that happens, you're prepared, but most likely something will happen that is not quite as bad as you thought it would be, because you assumed the absolute worst thing would happen as a mental exercise. So this idea of being resolved from the start, I find very interesting, and it's difficult. It's difficult to put into practice, but when you do that thing, it can help out a lot. It can help you navigate life and facing challenges in life a little bit more easily. I'm not saying with ease, but more easily than if you've never considered anything could go wrong. And I really like the simile, I suppose, that Yamamoto Tsunetomo uses here. Think of walking through the rain. You can start running. You can try to hide under eaves of houses, overhanging thing, whatever. But at the end of the rainstorm, you're going to be just as soaked as anyone else because there are going to be gaps in whatever you're trying to hide under. You can run, but you still get wet. There's actually a scientific study, I think, that found out that, I forget the exact results, but it was something like if you run, you bend over more, so you have more surface area exposed. So there's all kinds of things that people have thought about. But the image is nice. By being resolved, you will end up just as soaked as someone who is trying to hide and find shelter. But the difference is you accept that soaking because you're resolved that you're going to keep moving. And that is incredibly stoic, isn't it? Instead of panicking and starting to run around and looking for shelter, you think, okay, interesting, this thing is happening to me. And it may well be an unpleasant thing. I may not like this thing happening to me. But it is happening to me, whether I like it or not. And by being resolved from the start, it may become easier to accept that thing in life and move forward. As opposed to being taken off guard, caught off guard, and then being taken aback, and then not being able to handle that situation. Bad things in life are always bad, they're always hard, but by being resolved, you can make it a little easier on yourself. So, approach it like a rainstorm. It's happening, and no matter how bad it is, at some point it will be over. Whatever that means, and however terminal that overness is, at some point the bad thing will be over. And then you can either run around like a headless chicken in panic mode, or you can be resolved to keep walking until the thing is over. And I think one thing will give you a lot of mental stress, and the other will give you, relatively speaking, more calmness. And I'm not saying any of this is easy, but I am saying that by practicing Stoic principles consistently, it can become easier, because through mere practice, you do something again and again and again. And that, I think, in the long run will help. So, remember the rainstorm. I hope this was useful. Let me know what you think of this parallel. Thanks for watching, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye!